Hi, Alyssa. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Thank you for being here. I'm excited for us to kind of chat about something that we haven't talked about yet on the podcast. So that's always exciting for me when we get a new topic to chat about, and also kind of your journey to what got you to be a practitioner. So if we could, let's dive in. And would you share with our listeners what you're currently doing in your practice today?
Yeah, definitely. So I currently have my own practice where I work with clients in a one-on-one setting. I typically work with men and women that have been dealing with chronic symptoms or conditions that they haven't been able to really heal on their own or with the help of conventional medicine doctors. My focus as a practitioner is really on identifying the deepest root causes possible that could be triggering these chronic symptoms for my clients, and whether that's Lyme, mold, parasites, heavy metals, things like that. And then we address them through the use of bio-individualized supplement protocols and diet and lifestyle adjustments.
Yeah, that's great. So what have you always been interested in health and wellness? Is it something that you've always, practiced? Is it what you kind of did early on? Did you kind of do something else and then shift? How did you kind of get to where you're at now?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. I have a background in business. I work in market research. But like many other practitioners in this space, my own wellness journey had brought me to this place where I am today. My healing journey started about 10 years ago after college, but I really have a lifetime dealing with chronic disease. At 2 years old, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And my doctor at the time put me on a high course of antibiotics for a few months. So I know that now that kind of set me up and my gut up for a disaster and a long road of healing. So my whole life throughout high school, college, I was always sick. I had lowered immunity, joint pain, chronic fatigue, reoccurring mononucleosis, Epstein-Barr, you name it. I probably had it throughout the years. And it wasn't until really after college is when my toxin bucket really overflowed. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I had the joint pain was just unbearable. I had chronic fatigue, severe dry eyes, dry mouth. And my ophthalmologist at the time actually had recommended I get some blood work done. And that came back positive for Sjogren's syndrome, which it's, just a name for a collection of symptoms really. But that led me down a path of going from specialist to specialist to seek help, to seek answers, get relief. But ultimately, I didn't get it from conventional medicine. So I had to do some research and digging on my own. And I came across this book called the Immune System Recovery Plan by Susan Bloom. And that really was a turning point in my life and my healing journey because it opened my eyes to options outside of conventional medicine. I learned that there are doctors that can help put autoimmune diseases and chronic conditions into remission without the use of pharmaceuticals. So once I started, refusing medications, all of my doctors pretty much said, sorry, can't help you anymore, and just left me on my own. And while that was definitely scary, I felt empowered because my health was now in my hands and it was up to me to get better. So that's when I sought out functional medicine. And I came across a doctor, practitioner that ran an organic acids test and an HTMA and reviewed my blood work from a functional perspective. And that really just changed my life. And as I started feeling better and curing my so-called incurable symptoms, I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore that I needed to share this message that healing is possible and you don't need to live your life by the mercy of these medications and conventional medicine doctors. So that's when I decided to make a career switch. I did so much research on the right type of courses to take, and I landed on IHP, and that's really where this all started.
Wow. It's amazing. I've interviewed so many people, they haven't necessarily aired yet, but I feel like in the past few months that all talk about kind of this stuff coming to light after college. And I feel like even though it's like maybe a fun time in, adolescent based, growing up or whatnot, it's super stressful on the body. Like you're up late. There's a lot of stressors as far as school's concerned. You might be consuming crummy food because that's all that's like available and you're on a budget, and there might be a lot of alcohol, or it can just kind of be, for me, I actually didn't like college. So it was like emotionally kind of like, stressful for me. So I feel like so many people kind of have this revelation after college where they're like, oh my gosh, my health, I was the same way, is really, really bad, in a bad place. And it's interesting because it's after you've gone to school for 4 years for something else,
like
maybe business. And you kind of have this turning point, but it's kind of incredible how it works, because I also think that then you're at an age where you can empower yourself to do the research and take health into your own hands. Whereas at like 18, that's maybe not necessarily a great age to do all of that. So I think we kind of all arrive, at our own pace for sure. But yeah, it's so interesting how after a college experience, so many people find their health in a deteriorated state. It says a lot to kind of, I think, the collegiate type of atmosphere in this country for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think to myself, man, I wish I could go back in time and change my major and change what I ate and what I did. But in the end, all of those things brought me to where I am today. And if I didn't go through those hardships and all those illnesses, then I wouldn't be able to help people now and relate to them on such a deep level and bring all of my experience and my knowledge to my practice and to my clients. But yeah, I mean, college is so hard and in so many levels with your diet, your emotions, the stress from studying and not sleeping. It's kind of just the perfect storm to throw your body under all this stress. And that's when your toxin bucket really overflows.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think we all kind of as practitioners have, like you said, these stories where we look back and we're like, oh, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But the truth is if things ended up all that different, it might have led us down a different path. Like you might still be practicing business and or marketing, and you wouldn't necessarily have, like you said, the relatability to clients who are going through something incredibly similar to you. And I've said it before on these podcasts, and I'll say it again. When a client knows that either you can understand their desperation, their sadness, their pain, and relate to it on a level where you truly understand what they're going through, it is so much easier for them to trust and kind of find a place of vulnerability and, just relax into that healing state when they know that somebody's kind of been there or they get it, and they're not like banging their heads against a wall of somebody who's like, well, I have no idea what's wrong with you. You're fine. Like a conventional, setting does. I think that's really what sets us apart, because, again, I've said it before, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think when we've been there, we are able to, care in a much different way.
Yeah, I think you said trust. Trust is a big piece when working with clients. You trust what they're saying because they've been through it and they came out on the other side, and it gives them some hope during this very, very difficult journey for them, that you can get better again. And like, wow, you overcame this symptom, you overcame that. It inspires them. And I think that's really important as practitioners that have been through this journey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's evidence that it's possible. And like you said at the beginning, I think certainly within Equal Life, and I think a lot of other practitioners would agree, sometimes we're kind of that last hope or that last stop, and they've exhausted all of those conventional options. And so people oftentimes come to us with a little bit more skepticism or a little bit less of that hope, or they've kind of been burnt by practitioners before. And we are kind of left to restore that as well as guide them down, protocols and whatnot. So I think it's such an important piece.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of kind of how you practice and do all of that, what I would love to kind of dive into is the applied kinesiology or muscle testing. It's kind of typically referred to two things that you incorporate with your practice. I think, a lot of us can kind of get these narrow views of, I'm just going to do it all this way or all that way. And I think a lot of really good practitioners have lots of different tools in their, toolbox where they're able to use this if it applies, or that if it applies better to this client. So I would love for you to share, for those who have no idea what applied kinesiology or muscle testing is, kind of what it is, and then how you use it in your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So muscle testing is a form of applied kinesiology that typically you're used to chiropractors using it. It was a chiropractor that developed it back in the 70s, but now more and more functional medicine doctors are incorporating it into their practice because it's a way to get biofeedback from the body. And why would you want to get biofeedback from the body? Because it's a way of our subconscious mind to tell you, what is wrong, what is causing these root causes, what's causing these symptoms, how much of a supplement should you take? Is this the right supplement? So you can ask the subconscious mind all of these questions and you're able to get the answers. And it's not only in person, you can do this virtually as well. I use a pendulum and I'm able to get answers through that just by taking on the energy of my clients and asking, their subconscious, the questions that I need to ask in order to identify the root causes and create a totally customized protocol for them.
Okay. Yeah. And so, so you use a pendulum. Sometimes there's also a technique where like they press on and usually I think this is like kind of what the chiropractor.
Yep, exactly.
Like they'll press on your muscle. And if you can resist, it's crazy because I've had it done on me before where like they hold one thing in their hand and I can completely resist. And then they put something else in their hand and literally I have no strength in my arm.
Yeah.
And so there's that kind of too, but you obviously do need to be in person for that form.
Yeah. So the form that you had just explained, so that is the basis of muscle testing. And that's what you would do or could do if you had an in-person practice. Mm-hmm. But being that I'm virtual, it has to be using a pendulum or like a pen or finger method. There's so many different methods that you can do. The pendulum really resonates with me, but I'm able to just get the simple, clear yes or no answers, asking the right questions through that.
Yep. Okay, that's great. Now, as far as your clientele is concerned, do you find that a lot of people are super open to it? Do you find that there's like resistance or questions around it? I'm, super into like the whole energetic, like all of that subconscious space, but there's also some people that are kind of like, do you use it with all of your clients, or is it kind of used as you feel like it's necessary?
Yeah, so it's a little tricky. You have to meet your client where they're at. If they are very skeptical, sometimes, the muscle testing and the energy work won't actually work because they're so skeptical and the energy is just not there. But for clients that are more open to it, I do it on the back end, really. It could be before, after a session, and I take notes and I have those notes and I still look at their symptomatology. I still look at their lab tests. So it's kind of just another tool that I have to confirm the findings through their symptoms, through their lab tests as well. But I'm able to get more specific data that I wouldn't be getting on lab tests. And I think that my clients really appreciate that because I'm able to really customize their protocols and their dosages and their supplements that are really fit for their body. And I haven't gotten any pushback yet. So crossing my fingers that never happens in the future. But if I do, then I just use another tool in my toolbox and I wouldn't use it. Or I could just use it for the knowledge of myself as I recommend supplements or other lab tests that they can have clear answers for.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking like sometimes it would like allow you to even be able to kind of, push in a direction of like, okay, this is the lab we need to run, or it seems like this is the issue and we kind of need to go here, like something like skin-based issues. I'm just thinking of like if someone has eczema, well, it could be food sensitivities, it could be leaky gut, it could be gut-based overgrowth, it could be parasites. Mm-hmm. And so like having a little bit of a clearer picture on your end, you could kind of maybe eliminate testing this and go here first, or know that it's probably a little bit of this, but maybe I want to test that. And so it can kind of help you fine tune your approach, even if they're not, perfectly aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I had a client recently, they ran an organic acids test and their mold markers really weren't that high, but I did see some elevations, and the organic acids test doesn't have too many mold indicators on it. But I learned through muscle testing that mold was a huge root cause for them and causing a lot of their issues. So that could allow me to, recommend like a mycotoxin test or something like that, and really have them, test the environment in their work, in their home to see if there's mold. So it really just gives a deeper insight into everything that's going on.
Yep. Yeah, of course. And have you had instances like that where you kind of are like, oh, like this is kind of revealing to me that mold is an issue, and you have them run a mycotox test and like, there it is, mold is a major issue?
Yes, actually, I did have that happen, and they kind of were like, oh, wait, so your muscle testing is actually working. And it's true. It's like, yes, it does work. Cause it's responding to the energy of your body, and your subconscious mind really knows everything that's going on internally. So, you're just getting the truth really from your body.
Yeah, absolutely. So was that something that you were interested in? Was that something that you kind of learned through a practitioner that you worked with to get well? Was that something that you kind of knew about before IHP? Is it something that you learned after and kind of incorporated then? What was kind of the way that you were introduced to it?
Yeah, so I learned about it because my functional medicine practitioner had practiced it on me. They kind of did it behind the scenes. But I was always asking, how do you know this? And how do you know what type of parasite I have? And things like that. And they were like, well, I use this thing called muscle testing. And I'm like, well, how do you do it virtually? That's so weird. So I was very skeptical at first. But once I started feeling better, I was fully on board with it because I knew that it was working. It was giving the data to my practitioner that she needed to help me heal. So I went into IHP knowing that I also wanted to learn muscle testing after I finished the certification, to really incorporate it into my practice as another toolbox. So once I finished IHP, I went to a conference in California that taught muscle testing. It was a 3-day conference, and that is just when I learned, and I was able to start muscle testing, the Monday I got back from the conference. So, but there are other resources that teach muscle testing. There's a book called Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And he teaches, the basic form of muscle testing in there as well. So if anyone, wants to learn a little more information about it and see if it's something that resonates with you, you can always read that book and decide if you want to learn more and go to a conference. But I have seen more and more functional medicine practitioners in this space hosting these muscle testing conferences, or having virtual muscle testing courses that you can take online to learn as well.
Yeah. It absolutely is kind of becoming a little bit more mainstream as far as who's using it. And yeah, absolutely. So I have another little question. So when you kind of transitioned from more of was it marketing and business? Correct.
Market research. Yeah.
Market research. Okay. So did you come across any roadblocks, whether it be, spiritual, emotional, financial, actual like issues with, kind of living situation or what have you, when you moved from kind of one career path, when you decided like, this is what I'm meant to do, and you were kind of committed to the transition, was there any setbacks or kind of things that came up that you had to overcome?
Yes. So there was a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that I had to overcome, especially because I was taking on, my own healing journey over the last few years. I was also in IHP. I was working full time. So there was a lot of things going on. So I think emotionally it was very overwhelming. But I just needed to sit back and realize that this is all happening and this is all going to be amazing. And I just needed to take things slow. And, I didn't just quit my job immediately. I didn't have the financial means to do that. So I'm just taking things slow, transitioning, from a part-time practice eventually to full-time. So that's really where I'm at now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of us can kind of listen to these podcasts. I haven't asked that question in a little bit. And we kind of hear like, okay, I was doing this, I got super sick, I got better. And so I decided to like spread the message with the world, and it could sound like super dreamy. But I think at certain points, depending on kind of where you're at with either age or finances, or, what support you have from family or friends, there can kind of be these little setbacks or, certainly roadblocks along the way that can make it somewhat challenging. And, I believe that sometimes that stuff's put in our way to kind of like, how bad do you want it? And kind of just builds our resilience, to the whole process even more. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And I would say it's difficult when you're learning about all of these things in IHP and you're following that passion and you really feel like this is what you're meant to do in life. And it's difficult to maintain your day job where that's not your passion. Because you're just thinking about all of the things that you could be doing. You could be helping people. So that was tough emotionally, because I felt like I was just wasting my days, not doing what I wanted to do. But you just have to realize like that job is paying your bills right now. It's allowing you to pursue your certification, pursue your dream, help you get better so you can be in a better position to help others.
Yeah, such a great point. And I think it kind of goes back to the whole, premise of being, a lot of us practitioners, it's kind of like what we want to do because it's what we feel called to do and to kind of help and serve others. And like when you get out of that alignment, a lot of people who like aren't conscious about that would have no problem like just doing a job because it makes them a lot of money. And like they, it's not necessarily aligned with who they are, but they're kind of blind to that. And I think as practitioners, that's again, another little thing that sets us apart in the sense that like, we almost can't ignore that feeling inside. That's like, no, like this is a total waste of time. Like I'm wasting my passion, my knowledge, and somebody out there needs me. And like you said, it only kind of makes you stronger when you are able to then start practicing and kind of and getting into that space.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And truly it's again, one more step that leads us to kind of like where we're supposed to go as far as practitioners. And we can kind of think as things in like, that was hard, like wish that didn't happen. Or if I didn't waste that year, doing that, but it's not a waste when it gets you to where you need to be. I mean, it's literally kind of like being in a relationship with someone who like you don't really love, and you meet someone new and you're like, oh God, because like you're in a job where you're just kind of going through the motions. But the truth is it's leading you, like you said, allowing you to kind of build a practice and build certifications along the way.
Yeah. And when you said stepping stone, it actually reminded me of something that Dr. Cabral talked about in one of his lessons in the IHP courses. You have to enjoy these stepping stones of life, because that is what life is made of. It's all of these little stepping stones that bring you to where you are now. And you're never going to be able to enjoy where you are if you don't enjoy these moments that are happening right now, to just be mindful and be grateful and be present.
Yes. Yeah. Because we all kind of get this, or I shouldn't say we all, but some people, I certainly did for quite some time, like this destination happiness where like, I'll relax when, or I'll be happy when, or I'll be able to like, think about this. I'll be able to commit to that when, and it's kind of always out there, and you're never able to kind of fully embody it or work on it unless you're kind of like present and in the moment.
Yeah, that is perfectly said.
Yeah. And the whole stepping stone thing too, I think that when there's really, because I believe that there's really not like a place where anybody gets to. I mean, maybe when you're like 75, if you're retired and just like where you're kind of like, okay, like I'll sit back now. I mean, especially as practitioners, and even Dr. Cabral, like he's a perfect example of that. Like he's always learning, he's always doing something new. And so there's not really a place where like you arrive to where it's like you're done. And so you might as well enjoy every little bit along the way, because that is the process. Like the process is the destiny. And like that is essentially what we're kind of all going through. And I think we can kind of get so hung up and be hard on ourselves for like why we're not there or why we ever did that. And the truth is like all we have is the moment.
Yep, exactly. And once you get into that mindset, then you're able to just take a deep breath and be present and be grateful for all that you have and all that you have in the future to come.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you had mentioned the Emotion Code, that book.
Yes.
Do you have any other like either favorite podcasts or book resources, anything? And it could be related to the muscle testing or applied kinesiology, or it could be completely independent of that and just be other books that you think practitioners could benefit from, but anything that kind of stood out in your library as being most beneficial?
Oh, yes. I love books. I love reading. Some, general functional medicine books that I have in my library: The Disease Delusion by Dr. Jeffrey Bland, How to Make Disease Disappear, Toxic by Neil Nathan, Emotion Code, any book by James D. Nicole Antonio, Mind-Gut Connection, Cure Your Fatigue, like I mentioned, the Immune System Recovery Plan. So those are some books that really shaped my thinking and helped me get to where I am in my practice and in this integrative space.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And if we had someone listening who kind of like isn't necessarily an IHP yet, or is in the middle of like their own healing journey, and they're kind of like listening, what would be like one piece of advice that you would give somebody, anybody starting out? Now they might already be an IHP and they're kind of starting a practice, or they're wondering like, should I go take this certification and incorporate that? Is there something that you would kind of give them as far as advice is concerned?
Yeah. So one piece of advice I would say is just network, talk to people, talk to other IHPs, whether they're just starting their own business or they're successful in their business already, and learn from them, learn what they're doing, learn what is working for them and not working for them. Take a look at their website, like get inspiration of how you want to apply your learnings to your own business. That was a huge piece for me when I was starting my business, is just getting support from other practitioners and other people in this space, because they've been through it as well. And it just helps you focus your energy on the right things at the right time. So that is definitely something that I would recommend to other new IHPs.
Yes. Yeah. And because everybody started somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like this program has only been around for so long. And so the fact that everybody is not that far off from a start, right? I think probably the longest somebody could kind of be in this, as far as like I specifically IHP is concerned, 6 years, maybe. I'm not sure if that's the exact, but it's not like it's been around for 40 years. Right. So a lot of the people that we're in contact with or connected with on social media or whatnot, have also been starting out not that long ago. And so, using the wisdom and of course, I think when we are in this space, it's just a much more, it's such a community that like cares, and there's, this very little competition to kind of like be the one that knows it all and not share it. And everybody is always so helpful, whether it's like how to build a website, how to find this, or who to contact to do payment stuff. Everybody is always so eager to share what they already know. Because again, when you have it just as like your innate ability to care, right? Like, just like you wanted to share how you got better, like you're happy to share how you started something that didn't work out and this is what you did instead, right? Like, we're just individuals that are kind of here to share good with everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as practitioners, we're naturally caring and empathetic. So if another practitioner reaches out, all you want to do is help them because you know that you've been there pretty recently as well. And there's just so many people to help. So other practitioners really just aren't your competition. They're just helping you help others get better. And that's really just most important. And that's what every practitioner, that's their end goal, is to just help people and spread the message, healing is possible and you can get better.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was Dr. Cabral's mission with IHP, is he was like, I can help X amount of people, but if I teach others how to help people, then I can help that many more people. And like the message just kind of, gets out there.
Yep.
Okay. So if people are listening and they kind of want to learn more, where do you show up on social media? Do you have a website? Any kind of places that you show up that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So my practice is Waveside Wellness. So my Instagram is at Waveside Wellness. My website is linked in my bio on my Instagram, or wavesidewellness.com. And I do free discovery calls if you want to just chat a little more and learn about my practice. I am always happy to talk to anyone.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was so great having you on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. I appreciate you being here and sharing everything that you did with our listeners.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was great.
Yes. We'll be in touch soon. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you. Bye, Julia.
Bye-bye.